I'm Dr. Yolanda Cintron. I'm a biological dentist in Fort Lauderdale for 26 years. And I have my guest, Dr. Tyler. And I am very impressed with his boldness. Dr. Tyler, I'd like to start asking you, how did you get involved in the wellness world?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I always got adjusted by a chiropractor and knew I wanted to go to chiropractic school. And so at chiropractic school, we have a foundation, which I can talk about more, which I talk a lot about on my social medias. But in general, what we call the 3Ts. So we call them thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And so those can kind of correlate to thoughts, emotional stress, toxins, chemical stress, and then trauma, physical stress. And so the chiropractic adjustment does a phenomenal job with multiple facets of that. A lot of people know chiropractors as adjusters, and that's really good for the physical aspect of it, but there's also many more chemicals in the world that we live in, whether it's as simple as a food allergy, it's as complex as a mold toxicity, a tooth infection, like a heavy metal exposure, right? The list really goes on and on of those toxins, which can correlate to thoughts as well. And so while I was in chiropractic school, going through learning how to adjust, doing all that, I said, this is awesome, but I said, I think there's more to it. And then the founder of The Wellness Way, his name's Dr. Patrick Flynn. He actually came down to do a talk at our school. And so I headed over there and I listened to his talk, and he talked about all three of the 3Ts, which was set home with me very well. And I said, this is it. There's more to the chiropractic, and I think I've found it. And then when you look back at the history of chiropractic, the founder of chiropractic actually, I'm not going to go super in depth on that just because we have a lot that we're probably going to talk about today, but you weren't allowed to be adjusted by him unless you had a blood panel done. And so chiropractic was really founded on doing a lot of the testing that we're doing, but unfortunately the insurance world kind of ran it into the ground in the 1980s or so.
Right. That's fascinating. So let me go back to the 3Ts. So you have trauma.
Yep.
Toxic. And what?
Yep. Toxins. Thoughts.
Oh, your thoughts.
So, yeah.
Got it.
So basically the trauma is like physical stressors. The toxins is chemical stressors. So a lot of what we're exposed to on a daily basis in America, unfortunately. And then, thoughts. So between the ears, your thoughts, your emotions, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So I'm fascinated by you because so many people are seeing people by body parts. You know, I have heard my patients and also my personal experience that people are so specialized by body parts that they're not seeing people as a whole. So I saw, one of your videos on Facebook and the wellness, and I said, I have to do a podcast with him because he's very cutting edge, honestly.
Yep.
And you are the first doctor that I have heard that literally went into the connection of the mercury with the mercury fillings with the thyroid. I just want you to tell me, how do you handle that? Are you doing blood panels with your patients?
Yeah, so we have blood, urine, and stool are kind of the three major ways that we test. A blood panel on everybody? No, not necessarily. If they need a stool test or something, look at more urine, heavy metals, a mold, a urine hormone test, we have access to those as well. But yeah, when it comes to looking at the body as a whole instead of individually, we say the body functions like a Swiss watch. So a lot of people know what a Swiss watch is. It has a bunch of different gears on it. And, no matter what gear in that Swiss watch decides to turn, if it's functioning properly, they're all going to turn. And if it's not functioning properly, then either they're all going to turn wrong or they're not going to turn, right? And so that's how we want to look at the body. And there's no such thing as just a gut issue. There's no such thing as just a liver issue. It's a systemic body issue. And we really say, let's step back and look at the forest instead of trying to pick this oak tree or this walnut tree out of this forest because, well, one, a lot of these patients have done that their whole life and they still feel awful and they're coming to my office as a last resort. Basically, I don't care how much this costs. Please just help me because I've been through the gauntlet, the ringer, whatever you want to call it, and so many different things. And that's a good testament to how mercury fillings affect the thyroid because thyroid, a lot of people say, oh, I have a thyroid issue. And I'm like, do you have a thyroid issue or do you have an immune system issue? Because the thyroid is a very fatty tissue right here in our neck. Well, there's a lot of blood flow from our heart to our brain and, that can carry toxicity. There's a lot of lymphatic flow that can carry toxicity. But the big component there, which I showed on that x-ray, you shouldn't really be able to see a thyroid on an x-ray. If you're seeing calcification in the thyroid, well, inflammation is going to follow calcification. So that tells you there's a pretty good immune system stressor. Now, you can test the thyroid and look for antibodies, look for how the thyroid hormone's functioning. But if there is antibodies, it's still an immune system response. And one of the major things that we see with that fatty tissue, because our body neutralizes toxins with fat tissue. I mean, it's a very smart mechanism that our body does. A lot of people in America Granted, standard American diet's awful, but we have a lot of obese people here in America. And then,
we have to change that, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah.
We have to change that because, what you're doing is educating people. So people don't know any better.
Right.
We're on a mission to really educate people because, for example, you're speaking about toxicity. And yes, the body creates self-mechanisms. We have patients that are obese because they're so full of toxins.
Yeah.
And once you remove the toxins, I have a patient that had root canal on tooth number 13. She had a tumor on the thyroid. She couldn't get pregnant. So we removed the tooth that was infected, right? Every single root canal is a dead tooth. So why would anybody have a dead tooth in their jawbone close to their brain? So as soon as we removed the root canal, her tumor on the thyroid went down. We said for a biopsy, we do DNA biopsies on the teeth that are, dead, just to prove to the patient and to give to the doctors a baseline for them to know what to do with that. Some people have mold on the tooth. Some people have amoebas on the tooth. So she was only 33 years old. Imagine. I had another lady that came from Seattle, and she did not tell me she had a tumor on her thyroid. And I told her, well, you have an implant on tooth number 5, and that's on the meridian of your thyroid.
Yep.
Besides that, she told me, I'll be back. I'm going to speak to my husband, outside. And then I called her doctor, her referring doctor. And I said, such a patient that you refer, everything looks normal, except that she has a titanium implant on a thyroid meridian. Mm-hmm. The doctor said, well, she has a tumor that's moving her trachea 2.5 inches to the right. And I said, oh, she forgot to tell me that detail. So I love working with doctors like you that are so comprehensive because, you can do all your work and detoxify, but how are you going to get the tooth out?
Right. Yeah.
You're going to be spinning your wheel. Yeah.
We actually have a holistic dentist in our area that does similar work to what you do, which is phenomenal for our local resource patients.
That's really good. Where are you located?
We're in eastern Iowa. We're in Coralville, Iowa City area, but just about 20 minutes north of us, or even 10 minutes north of us, there's a holistic dentist that does similar work where he removes fillings, biological stuff, things of that nature, and it really improves our patients' health as well.
That's really awesome that you have somebody that you can work with.
Yeah.
Because it's a game changer. If somebody has mercury and, the dentist has to protect the patient with oxygen and proper smart protocol so it doesn't splatter to the tissues, because you're going to see immediate results with your patients.
Yeah. Yeah. We always tell people the old mercury flask, if we were to drop one in the room we're in right now, everybody would have to evacuate this building, not even just us. And so that's just a good testament to, do you really want that in your mouth on a daily basis? Because those heavy metal toxicities are going to have to get neutralized by toxins, aka your thyroid. And that's why gluten and heavy metals, aka amalgam fillings, are probably two of the most common reasons that I see a lot of thyroid dysfunction, especially in the United States.
Yeah, there's another thing that is in the mouth. There's a few things that you have to look for. The old porcelain fused to metal crowns, those have aluminum. The porcelain has aluminum. So aluminum is a neurotoxin for the brain. And also you have the lead, the cadmium that some of the crowns have. And most people have crowns that are old, they have mercury underneath. So that has to be replaced. And then the number one problem in America is that our diet is so rich on sugars and people are snacking constantly. So what happens is that the gums get infected, they get inflamed. As bad as the gums are, as bad as the heart is going to be. So you have inflammation of the gums, periodontal disease, and that is covering the heart. You get bacteremia, endocarditis, and strokes. So those are the things that I am so proud of you. Are you looking inside the mouth and saying, let me look?
I mean, with the x-rays, we can see some type of inflammation, and then you can tell a lot by looking at somebody's teeth and oral cavity. I would say don't go as in-depth as you do looking into the mouth. That's where I like having that access to refer, because a lot of people don't realize how much bacteria in your mouth even stimulates. Normal bacteria in your mouth stimulates, one, good oral health, but also digestion. And, if you have poor saliva production, poor bacteria in your mouth, you're missing stage 2/3 of digestion. And so at that point, then you wonder why we have so many GI issues. Well, everyone's like, oh, it's a gut issue. You're probably eating crappy. You probably have poor oral health. You probably have high amounts of inflammation. And so that's where it comes back to all of this into one. And so many people want to say like, oh, it's my stomach. I have an acid problem in my stomach. And I'm like, probably have a lot more going on than just that.
I love it. I love that you're so bold. We need more people like that because you cannot sugarcoat it. If somebody goes to your office and they open their mouth and they knock you off the park because the bad breath is so bad, it not only is bad for them, for their heart, for their lungs, for their brain, but it also they're contaminating your office. They're contaminating their family, the children. For example, if they have children and they don't care about themselves, they'll be motivated by the love to their children. I encourage that people definitely get help with that department. So what do you recommend when people, once they remove the mercuries, the lead, the aluminum, the periodontal, and they're stable in their mouth, what do you recommend for them to do to remove the toxic load of their body?
Yeah, so we always address it from chronic inflammation and stress. And so a major trigger of chronic inflammation is obviously like the metals that we've really hit home with, but we also want to make sure that their diet is cleaned up so they're not eating a bunch of food allergies. Like you mentioned, sugar is really the ultimate hit home here. And not only does it affect your gums, like you mentioned, it's also going to, for men, lower testosterone levels. For women, can drive more androgen dominance, causes a lot of inflammation, suppresses the immune system, all things we really don't want to do. And so we really push, yes, glucose is essential for life, don't get me wrong, but people are over consuming and they're consuming all the processed sugars. So we really push for more of a natural form. So really work on their diet. We do have our own supplement line. We will use them for a degree of nutrient deficiencies where they might be toxic. We can run them through a detox if they're ready, but a lot of people will jump to, oh, I feel really crappy, it's time I detox. And I'm like, whoa. You know, if you detox at the wrong time, that's going to be even worse than you feel right now. So let's pump the brakes right there and make sure you're ready. So really figuring out getting detoxification pathways going. Yes, you can do some binders to help detox that stuff out. But really, if you remove a lot of the triggers, your body's natural mechanism is detoxification. We get exposed to so many toxins on a daily basis. The problem becomes when you talk about the heavy metals, the mycotoxins exposures, the food allergies you're consistently eating, that it's 24/7. Like there's no break for your body. And so I always use the analogy when you have like that, there's a few things. One, you can use the analogy of we're trying to dry you off with a shower head over the top of you. Or secondly, you're hitting your finger with a hammer, it's swelling up and you're not letting it heal. And then you're just smacking it again. And that creates chronic inflammation over time. And all these people want to talk about all these diseases and these cancers and these massive pathologies. And I'm like, yeah, those are a big deal. And they're becoming more prominent in the United States. We have better and better healthcare, but yeah, we're getting sicker and sicker. That's not really adding up, from my opinion. Yeah. So why is this becoming such an issue? Because by the time you do that testing to check for the polyps, the cancers, the major pathologies, you're already way behind the 8 ball. You had chronic inflammation, chronic stress on your body for probably years, right? You don't just wake up and have a colonoscopy show a polyp, right? It builds that time from stressors on the body. And so whatever we can do to peel back on those stressors, whether they're the emotional, the physical, or the chemical, that's going to allow the body to function at a better level. So we do have supplements, and there's natural things. Cruciferous vegetables are good detoxification. So there are natural things we can do as well. But the biggest thing to do is make sure that you're getting the exposures reduced, especially the ones that are 24/7, because you could detox but if they're exposed to something 24/7, it's just coming right back into the top anyways.
Right. That's very good. Tell me a little bit about how do you deal with the thought emotional part with your patients?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that is by far the hardest one, because everybody, interprets stress differently, especially women interpret stress a lot differently than men, just by physiology, biochemistry. Nothing wrong with that, just the way that we were built or created. And we do have supplements. Obviously, there's a time and place. Let's talk about grieving the loss of a loved one. That's something that, there's nothing that I can do as a doctor to bring that person back into their life. But what I can do as a doctor is understand, okay, their body is taking a lot of emotional stress that will wreck a female. A male on the other end, not so much, but a female can really, really see their health decline like that. I mean, you can do everything right. You can eat clean. You can get all your metals removed. You can have a perfectly functioning liver. You can have everything going right. And if you're mentally stressed 24/7, that's still another trigger. That's still going to knock their health down. Yeah. So we have California poppies and kavas and alcidonias. We have great supplements like that. And sometimes, as much as I don't like this mindset, because this mindset is a medical mindset of take this for that, sometimes you do have to supplement the body. That's what supplements are, supplement the body during a time of stress. And so there's times where, yes, you do need a lot of California poppy. But what I like to talk about with the emotional side of things in more of a generality, obviously grieving the loss of a loved one is not something that hangs around forever. Like, you never forget about them, don't get me wrong, but eventually that gets a little bit easier to handle. Now when we talk about emotional from, say, let's say, a stressful job, well, you can quit your job, right? But again, that isn't so stressful. But what I like to talk about is kind of back to the body being all connected. And so I like to talk about our stress bucket. And I say, you have a stress bucket. And just like a water pail, if you were to take a hose and fill up a water pail, unless there's a hole in it or you shut that water off, eventually it's going to spill over, right? That's kind of how our body handles stress. And eventually, if it spills over, then you can see many, many symptoms. And so what stresses the body out are those three things. And so if we can peel back a lot with the things we can control, the metal fillings, the food allergies, the gut infections, and get those knocked down, that makes more space in our bucket to handle emotional stress a little bit better. We're not living on the edge, like I say. A lot of these patients are living on the edge. Like, I'm constantly in fight or flight. And I'm like, yeah, look how much stress you're putting on your body. So the emotional ones.
Some of them are addicted to the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Some people are addicted because they don't know how to get energy otherwise.
Right.
Adrenaline, it puts them into like a fight or flight mechanism, but the adrenals get burned out.
Yep. And so many people love the dopamine hits from simple things of drinking a pop, eating sugar. That's all sugar is, dopamine hit.
Sugar is more addictive than heroin.
Yep. Yeah, they actually did a study. I can't remember what year it was in, but they had mice and they had sugar and they had actual cocaine. And majority of the mouse actually went and got the sugar and then when they went to the cocaine, they actually went back to the sugar. They wanted the sugar over it. And so I it's not like in a study, it's just, this is my saying, but I say sugar is a brain drug. It's a drug and it's a gateway drug. You eat sugar, it doesn't stick with your body. It's a simple carbohydrate. You break it down, then you're hungry again. You eat sugar again. And then we wonder why we're so obese. Well, you're eating a ton of empty calories that are giving you that dopamine and maybe that little spike in energy. But when we talk about a spike in cortisol and blood sugar, it's going to crash down eventually when you spike. And spikes and crashes. That takes a big wear on our body. There's no balance there. Everything in life, we need balance, right? Whether it's your cortisol levels, whether it's your melatonin levels, whether it's your hormones, right? If you have really high hormones or really low, not a good day. You keep them more baseline, probably a better day.
So question for you, with your experience, I'm seeing a lot of people, young people with cancer.
Yeah.
A lot of people that should not be having cancer. Most of the people, I would say 99.98% are people that have received root canals. I have a young girl, a 28-year-old, came from Seattle, colon cancer with a root canal on the meridian of the colon. How do you help the young generation? The intention of me doing this is I want the young people to know that they should not eat sugar, and they should not get root canals and have a healthy mouth. How do you reach out to the young people?
Yeah, just like you said, at such a young age, cancer, a lot of people are deathly scared of that word. And I get why, it's a scary word. Historically speaking, if you have cancer, you're likely closer to death than people that don't have cancer. And I would agree with that. But what I tell a lot of people with cancer is actually, if it's you or your loved one, you're actually kind of lucky that they got cancer. Otherwise, they wouldn't be with you at this day. Now, does that mean that they're not closer to death? No, they need to make a change. And that's why a lot of these hospitals and these people are like, oh, they have cancer. Let's speed them up with calories. They're calorie deficient. And I'm like, no. You realize no matter how somebody dies, it's muscle wasting. Now, cancer can increase the speed of muscle wasting, right? But if you don't have good nutrients and you're eating a lot of sugar and you're not feeding your muscles, well, smooth muscles are going to quit working, the heart, things of that nature, and catch you. So if you really had somebody with cancer, Natasha Witters, she's an MD. She did a very phenomenal book called Metabolic Approach to Cancer. And she talked about her approach with that. And she said, my patients with cancer are not allowed to eat sugar. And she gets an awesome. Now she does a lot more with them, don't get me wrong, but that was a major foundation she preached. And so, at such a young age, it is becoming an epidemic, right? These people are getting so sick, and cancer is and kind of like I mentioned before, what really leads to all this chronic disease is chronic inflammation. So, 28 years old and she's got cancer. That probably started at 10, 12 years old. It was building up for years and years. And so actually, reaching the kids, you can talk about similar stuff I just mentioned, but a lot of it starts with their parents. Parents are feeding their kids terrible food whether it's fortified cereals for breakfast or waffles or, maple
Pure
syrup.
sugar.
Yeah, maple syrup. A lot of it has added junk to it. If you have pure organic maple syrup, we can have that kind of conversation. But yeah, pure sugar for breakfast, you're spiking their cortisols, you're degrading. Basically, there's really no health benefit from processed pure sugar.
Yeah, I tell my patients anything on a can or on a box, you bypass.
Yep.
Everything that you buy should be fresh, and you have to eat it. It's
I always tell people if you stay on the outside of a grocery store, you're probably going to do a little bit better than if you get to the inside. All the processed junk's on the inside. If you stay on the produce, the vegetables, and the meat counters, you're going to be doing better off.
And it's funny because people say, but eating healthy is expensive. No, it's more expensive eating the things that are processed. You have to buy like a dressing, and it costs, I don't know, $8. You could have done that with olive oil and vinegar and lemon. And,
Well, and if you consider the nutrients effects of like organ meats are not that expensive, and you don't need much of it to get full because it's so nutrient dense. But I usually tell people that tell me that it's expensive to eat healthy, I say, yeah, it's not cheap by any means, but it's a lot more expensive to be sick. So,
but in reality, it's not. It depends, what they choose.
Yeah.
So another question that I have for you is, what is your morning routine? What do you do to be healthy?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, which you can let me know where you sit with that, but switching my toothpaste years ago to a fluoride-free was major, and cutting out all my sugar. I mean, my teeth as they've been. That's where a lot of dentists promote that, and instead of taking a more holistic approach like you and talking about their diet, they just let them eat whatever they want and say, here, put fluoride on it so your teeth are healthy. Okay, I'm not against that. It might be semi-okay for the enamel, but what is it doing to the rest of the body is just detrimental.
Well, let me tell you, fluoride is a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
And it's carcinogenic. It causes bone cancer in children.
Yeah.
Fluoride should be outlawed in the world. But fluoride has been historically used in governments to control the intelligence of people. It lowers your IQ.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up with Colgate.
I used it back in the day.
Yeah. So, for me as a dentist to learn that fluoride literally gives cancer to people and it's a neurotoxin and it lowers your intelligence is a no-brainer. You can actually make your own toothpaste. It's so easy.
Yeah. Yep.
If you have, coconut oil, if you have baking soda, if you can, anything, but, you can make it so easy every day that you don't have to be having a toothpaste that has any preservatives.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. It's faster, might be a little messy, right? You can put charcoal on it, it's a binder. A lot of people are doing oil pulling with coconut oil, but don't overdo it. 2 minutes, it's like plenty.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your routine. I want to know what you do to be healthy.
Yeah. So that was kind of brushing teeth in the morning, but simple things that I do in the morning to help jumpstart the morning, because a lot of people, especially Americans, they waste so much time in the morning. Your day could be so much more productive if you just get up, because first and foremost, especially in the summers, obviously down in Florida, you have it way better than I have it up here. But when the sun's rising, I watch the sun rise. I step out on my patio and I watch the sun rise. Now, on top of that, not only watching the sun rise to help set my circadian rhythm, I pop my shoes off and I stand in the grass. So I'm grounding and I'm watching the sun within about 10 minutes of waking up. Now, other things that a lot of people do is they hit the snooze button. Well, when you hit the snooze button, you're actually hindering your energy levels and your rhythm even more, because you're waking up, then you're going back to poor sleep for 5 minutes, and then you're waking up again. And so what I recommend, a lot of people that struggle with that, they're like, I just can't get up. I say, put your alarm across the room. And so it just keeps buzzing at them, and they have to get their butts out of bed to go get them. And then when I say you're already up, so don't lay back down, go to the sink, take some cold water, splash it in your face. That's going to help set your circadian rhythm. And then step outside, watch the sunrise, put your feet in the ground. And then obviously everybody from there gets a little bit different. I like to do some visualization type stuff. I like to get some exercise in the morning. I typically do like a 45-minute lift, but at minimum, I'm talking getting some push-ups, a walk outside with the sun rising is great. Those are simple things that I try to incorporate. Reading, I try to read 5 to 10 pages in the morning. You can just get your morning routine better. I mean, you're 1 to 2 hours ahead of everybody else. I have a lot of that done before most people wake up. It really depends on what workout I have. If I have a 45-minute workout, or if I'm just doing a 10 or 15-minute, but I do like to get up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock.
Wow, you're an overachiever. I love it.
Yeah, but even if people can get up by 6, you can do everything I just mentioned. doesn't have to be as long as I do it. You can do all that in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. My morning routine is a secret, you know. One of the things that I start doing is, I pray. I seek scriptures because, like you were saying about the thoughts, the Bible has a scripture that says, renew your mind daily. So instead of my thoughts might be toxic, I just go and say, what does the word of God says? And it actually is so powerful because, it says you don't have because you don't ask. Yeah, anything is possible through God. There are so many things that is like our way of seeing is so limited. So I start with that, drinking water and doing the sun. I live right on the ocean, so I see the sunrise and that wakes me up. So I love that.
The grounding
is huge.
Yep, I have to ground in grass, but you get the benefit of you can ground on the beach in the ocean, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yesterday we were in a big conference, and as soon as I got home, I put shorts and I went to the ocean and ground myself because when you're around, so many Wi-Fi's, electronics and things like that, it just saps your energy out.
Yeah.
I like your bucket story. I usually use a bucket as well, but I put all the toxic loads from mental, spiritual, physical, and your thoughts, all that stuff, because it adds up from the moment that somebody is born. They get the toxic loads emotionally from the mom. If the mom was stressed, they have all this adrenaline as a baby.
A lot of today's birthing process is very stressful too.
Right. So how do you feel about the women having the babies in a safer place that they don't put like 82,000 chemicals to the baby? But
I'm a big proponent on whatever the woman wants to do, right? But when they ask me options, I always say, home birth's a complete option. A lot of people don't realize that midwives, doulas are great at what they do. And the best part about a midwife and a doula is they ask the mom, what do you want? And before she's in a stressful situation, a lot of these pregnancies, are okay, they're fine. And then when it's time to go to the hospital to give birth, it's stressful. Like it clicks like that. And that's when they're expected to make these decisions. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best thing. And so, keeping stress levels down, having a birth at home or in any environment that's less stressful for them, I'm a big proponent on. And if there's, that's what we usually say with the emergency room, there's a time and place. If something goes wrong and you need to go to the emergency room, darn right, call the hospital and go and save your life. That's what drugs and surgery are for. But we need to ask the question on why you needed that in the first place, instead of just always saying, we use this analogy called the fireman and carpenter analogy. And that's what we talk about is firemen put fires out, carpenters rebuild the house. And it would be drugs and surgery. Telling someone, hey, take this aspirin every single day is kind of like telling a firefighter, hey, can you drive to my house and spray it down every day so that it doesn't get on fire? Well, eventually that wood's going to rot. You're going to get mold. You're going to, and it's the same thing goes with our body. Our body's going to rot if we continue to just spray it down to prevent fires.
I love that analogy. You're very creative with your metaphors. So that's awesome. So anything that you want to share with America and whomever is watching this, you're terrific. I would choose you as my doctor if I was around you.
Hey, we can help people remotely. So if you'd like to get some testing done, we easily can do that as well. We do phone consults. We ship you anything that's needed. So I'll be happy to do that. But simple things that I usually say is if you can cut your sugar back and cut your gluten back and processed dairies, if you cut those 3 things out, your life will improve. That's taking stress off your body. Then let's get some testing and do the next step. Now, a lot of people don't cut that out and they want to get the testing anyways. That's fine too. We'll make those changes as necessary, but start with your diet. So many people, everybody can improve their diet in some way, whether it's removing something or incorporating something. Every single person, even me and you who know it better than anybody else, can still improve our diets to some degree.
Yeah, well, every time. So how can people contact you?
Yeah, so people can reach us at Coralville at thewellnessway.com. We also have, obviously, our social media pages, The Wellness Way Coralville on Facebook, The Wellness Way Coralville on Instagram. We have a TikTok page as well. Or our phone number is 319-379-5801. We help internationally now. Internationally takes a little bit of different work, so we do it that way. But anybody in the U.S., we can do remote phone calls, ship them what's needed, or obviously if they're local to us, they come in person.
Awesome. It's funny, I was at A4M meeting conference in West Palm Beach, and I met a few people from your state. So that's
nice.
Yeah, interesting. And they're coming to get their root canals out because they're very, very sick. So Thank you so much for your generosity. You're awesome. Yeah. I'm very proud of you. I can see that you're going to be very successful internationally because you have a great, bold approach. God bless you. And if we can help you in any way, reach out to us.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.